Hello, I welcome you to the course Microeconomics. And this course is a 10 module course, and we'll be doing that one after the other. We'll take the course one after the other. And today, for the first module, we'll be having an introduction into what we know as the term microeconomics. So, introduction to microeconomics. And in doing this, we will actually try to explore the fundamental concept of microeconomics. We will focus on how individuals, economic units, make decisions and interact within markets. And also we'll cover the concept of scarcity, choice, and the distinction between positive and normative economic analysis. By definition, what do we mean by microeconomics? It is a core branch of economics that analyzes the behavior, choices, and interactions of individual economic units, such as the consumer, the firm, the workers, and the investors, and also how these agents respond to changes in economic variables, like that of the prices, wages, and resources availability. This term microeconomics is actually defined by different scholars also. And for Marquin 2020, it's defined microeconomics as a study of how household and firm make decisions and how they interact in markets. Also for Paul and Williams, 2020, microeconomics is actually defined as a branch of economics that studies how individual parts of the economic make decision and how they interact. Also, from the technical standpoint of Varian 2014, it actually explains that microeconomics deals with the analysis of small individual units of the economy and how they make choices subject to constraints. And you see from this that we've said we have things that are very common or that are coming out in the definitions. And the first is individual decision making, that is choices made by consumers, firms, and workers. So you see that it's a study, it's a field or branch of economics that deals with decision making, choices that are made by consumers, firms, and workers. Also, it's actually experience market interaction. And you see from that of Mankey and then that of Paul and Williams, you see that it's talking about how they interact together with the market. So that deals with how prices and quantities are determined through supply and demand. And lastly, resource allocation. So it's the efficient distribution of scarce resources to maximize utility or profit. What are the scopes of economics? When we talk about the scope, it is actually wide, and it encompasses various subfields that explains market function and economic agent behavior. And this can include the consumer theory. This deals with how individuals make consumption choices given limited income. We also have the theory of production. It deals with how firms transform input into output efficiently. Also, we have a scope of cost and revenue analysis, and this is the relationship between production output and cost. We have the market structures, and this deals with the analysis of perfect competition and monopoly and some other as such. And we also have the factor markets, and this deals with how markets for it's deals with how market for labor, capital, and land functions. We also have the welfare economics as a scope of microeconomics, which deals with the accessing of efficiency and equity of economics arrangement. And lastly, we have the aspect of market failure. And this is a situation where market fails to allocate resources efficiently. And this is what we will actually be looking into in topics that will be coming in the subsequent modules. And when we talk about this concept, we have the microeconomics and the macroeconomics. And what are the difference? What difference can we say they have? And while microeconomics focus on individual units and specific markets, macroeconomics deals with the aggregate indicators and broad economic phenomena like the inflation, uh, unemployment, and some other ones. If you have the opportunity, you'll be able to also look. We have a course to that effect that deals with macroeconomics. And it's actually principle. Macroeconomics is principle often form the foundation for macroeconomics model. Also, microeconomics focuses on the behavior of individual units and also the mechanic of particular markets, while macroeconomics deals with aggregate indicators and broad economic phenomena. So it deals with the broad economic phenomena and such as inflation, unemployment, and national income. Also, we have that macroeconomics principle often serve as foundation upon which macroeconomics model have built. Microeconomics is fundamentally the study of individual choices and market interaction in the face of scarcity. Also, microeconomics rather scope includes, just like we've discussed the other time, it includes everything from consumption, decision of households to the pricing strategy of firm, from labor market dynamics to welfare implication of resource allocation. And lastly, microeconomics provides essential tool for understanding the mechanism of everyday economic life and for crafting effective economic policies at both micro and macro level. When we talk about economics, we have these basic economic problems that is actually well known and generally considered. And for this, when we talk about this, we talk about the scarcity and the choice. At the heart of economics is the challenge and of allocating limited resources among unlimited human wants. And this dilemma gives rise to scarcity, which necessitates choices. So as a result of scarcity, we actually need to make choices. So what we need, what we want, we need to make choices on them because those resources are actually scarce. And when we talk about scarcity, it actually means that resources are insufficient rather to satisfy all possible uses and human wants. And in economic terms, scarcity does not mean a shortage or poverty. Rather, it implies that resources are limited relative to the multitude of wants they must fulfill. And it affects individuals, firm, government, and entire economies. And for choice, it's actually selecting one alternative over another. And it's also incurring opportunity cost, which is the value of the next best alternative forgone. And for instance, now when we talk about maybe a government choosing to build more schools instead of military bases, the opportunity cost is the national defense capabilities that could have been enhanced. So that's the opportunity cost. And in solving this problem, when looking at these problems, economic problems, we have to answer some questions. And these central questions are what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. These are very, very important questions that we need to look into when we talk about solving or the economic problems that we have in economics. We also have the positive versus normative economics, which is a very important aspect of microeconomics. And economics involves both factual analysis and value judgment. And distinguishing between these is very, very important in understanding its role as its role when we talk about economics. And when we talk about positive economics, in short, we can mean what is. It answers the question, what is? And this deals with the factual, objective, and testable statements. And it describes, explains, and predicts economic events without personal judgment. And characteristics of this are that it includes personal opinion or ethical judgment, focusing on what is, not what ought to be, just like we will see in the normative economics. And it uses empirical data to understand economic behavior and how to come. Also, it focuses on cause and effect. And lastly, its statements can be tested and verified through data and economic making it evidence, rather, making it scientific approach to economics. And for normative economics, it's concerned with value-laden judgments and subjective recommendations. It addresses what economic policy goals should be, and the key characteristics are that it involves ethical or moral judgment. It cannot be proven true or false empirically. It includes words like should or ought. And lastly, it informs policy formulation. Example of positive and normative economics is, for positive economics, we have a reduction in interest rates, increases investment, higher taxes on tobacco reduces consumption, and also subsidies increase agricultural output. So when there are subsidies for agriculture and the agricultural sector, it actually increases agricultural output. For normative, the central bank should reduce interest rates to boost investment. It cannot actually, it cannot be proven empirically, actually, but this is actually what should be. This is what it ought to be. Also, the government ought to increase tobacco taxes to promote public health. And lastly, the government should subsidize farmer to ensure food security. In conclusion, we've been able to have an introduction into what microeconomics is. And you've seen that it provides essential tools to analyze market interaction, evaluate efficiency, and access economic choices. And we've seen how it is important in terms of individual decision making. We've seen how it's important in terms of market dynamics, whereby it examines concepts like supply and demand, market structure, and resource allocation. And we will still look into this as we move on in the course. Also, for policy implications, the distinction between positive and normative economics further clarifies the role of empirical analysis and the value judgments in shaping economic policy. I would love to that you go through the notes and also move on to the next module. Thank you.